This is an awkward continuation on the last reading that involved Anne Hutchison. The last word was New Colony of Portsmouth, later a part of the Colony of Rhode Island. Perhaps the worst community conflicts in New England involved the witchcraft trials in the early 1690s. The largest number of trials were held in Salem, Massachusetts. In Salem, a group of girls had accused people of casting spells on them. The community formed a special court to judge the witchcraft cases. The court often pressured the suspected witches to confess. Before the trials had ended, the Salem witch trials led to 19 people being put to death. New England economy. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island were very different from the southern colonies. The often harsh climate and rocky soil meant that the first New England farms could grow cash crops. Most farming families grew crops and raised animals for their own use. There was thus little demand for farm laborers. Although some people held slaves, slavery did not become as important to this region. Merchants. Trade was vital to New England's economy. New England merchants traded goods locally and other colonies and overseas. Many of them traded local products such as furs, pickled beef, and pork. Many merchants grew in power and wealth, becoming leading members of New England colonies. Fishing. Fishing became one of the region's leading industries. The rich waters off New England's coast served as home to many fish, including cod, mackerel, and halibut. Merchants exported dried fish. Colonists also began hunting for whales that swam close to shore. Whales were captured with harpoons or spears and dragged to shore. Whaling provided valuable oil for lighting. Shipbuilding. Shipbuilding became an important industry in New England for several reasons. The area had plenty of forests that provided materials for shipbuilding. As trade, particularly in slaves, in the New England seaports grew, more merchant ships were built. The fishing industry also needed ships. New England shipyards made high-quality, valuable vessels. Ship owners sometimes even told their captains to sell the ship along with the cargo when they reached the destination. Skilled craftspeople. The northern economy needed skilled craftspeople. Families often sent younger sons to learn skilled trades such as blacksmithing, weaving, shipbuilding, and printing. The young boys who learned skilled trades were known as apprentices. Apprentices lived with master craftsmen and learned from him. In exchange, the boys performed simple tasks. Apprentices promised to work for a master craftsman for a set number of years. They learned trades that were essential to the survival of the colonies. Apprentices received food and often clothing from the craftsmen. Gabriel Jennings, for example, was an apprentice in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. He received sufficient food and raiment or clothing suitable for such an apprentice, as his 1663 contract stated. After a certain amount of time had passed, apprentices became journeymen. They usually traveled and learned new skills in their trade. Eventually, they would become a master of the trade themselves. Education in the colonies. Education was important in colonial New England. Mothers and fathers wanted their children to be able to read the Bible. The Massachusetts Bay Company passed some of the first laws requiring parents to provide instruction for their children. Public education. To be sure that future generations could have educated ministers, communities established town schools. In 1647, the General Court of Massachusetts issued an order that a school be founded in every township of 50 families. School children often used the New England Primer, which had characters and stories from the Bible. They learned to read at the same time that they learned about the community's religious values. The availability of schooling varied in the colonies. There were more schools in New England than in any other colony, and where most children lived far from towns. These children had to be taught by their parents or by private tutors. Most colonial children stopped their education after the elementary grades. Many went to work either on their family farm or away from home. Higher education. Higher education also was important to the colonists. In 1636, John Harvard and the General Court founded Harvard College. Harvard taught ministers and met the colony's need for higher education. The second college founded in the colonies, William and Mary, was established in Virginia in 1693. By 1700, about 70% of men and 45% of women in New England could read and write. These figures were much lower in Virginia, where Jamestown was the only major settlement.